So I think one of the things that was the most surprising to me is that when I was over there is A, that I didn't see any bucket hats. And two, that people were still convinced that our gas was more expensive than theirs.
I know. That was really funny.
Children.
How many times were you asked how much you paid for the car hire?
Never, actually.
What?
But like, I was only ever with our people, really. And then our family.
Okay.
Like, I didn't do all of the, like, I didn't have time
to
be like friends the way that you did. That'll have to wait for January.
Yeah, that's true. We were just talking about that last night at my neighbor Bill's. And like how I was telling them that like that's all anyone ever asked me was like, how much did you pay for the car hire?
No, I got asked. We got asked like about like why we were over and if we were having fun and like did it feel weird to be back? We got that a lot, especially in Oma. Because then they were like, and when was the last time you were home? I was like, Joanne's wedding in 2019. That was the last time we were in Oma.
Yeah.
They were like, what? That occupied a lot of conversation.
Well, we don't want to talk about why.
Yeah. How is it August?
I don't know. I'm confused. July was like, I just lost July.
Well, you did because you had the Rona. So
I did.
Yeah.
I did have the COVID, but yeah, that was a struggle. I was like, where? Oh, it's August. Cool. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody and they're like, and what, like, you know, what's going on with you and Erin? And I was like, I honestly have no idea because we haven't talked in 2 months.
Yeah.
I was like, because she was gone, then she got COVID, then I was gone, and now I was like, as far as we're still friends and partners. So that's all I got for you.
I was in our staff yesterday with Eleanor, and she was like, well, I don't know if Kristen told you about this fandom thing we're doing this month. I was like, I haven't talked to Kristen this month. I was like, I don't know.
No, the games ended and they ate her life for the entirety of July. Yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about our weekends and I said, like, what'd you do this weekend? And she was telling me that. She's like, I don't know if Kristen told you. I was like, absolutely not. But that sounds fun.
I was like, we have communicated entirely through WhatsApp voice notes.
Yeah.
So hi, it's really nice to see you again. I've missed you.
Same. And but that's why I'm excited that it's August because I can see your face more.
Because now we're together a lot.
Yeah, and on the same side in the same time zone for a while.
Yeah, I think the next time and like the most dramatic time zone shift is going to be just to Texas,
which I mean is its own thing, but at least time zone wise
it's manageable.
Yeah.
So guess who forgot to hit mute because I forgot I have an office phone. Sorry, everybody.
Jet lag is real.
All right, let's get going. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is like an update and yet not an update because Dr. Erin and I have not had a chance to talk about Papa Frank and his visit to the First Nations of Canada, his apology tour.
His penitence pilgrimage is what he called it, I think.
Okay. We're both still kind of up in our analytical and emotions about it. Like, I don't really feel like I fully have a grasp on the analysis of it or anything else. We talked about it a lot offline, but we might end up doing a hottish on it at some point to talk about where this ranks in apologies.
I think we should, yeah.
But I found this was really fascinating, and I wanted to bring this up as a part of this chapter. The Globe and Mail tweeted last week that the crisis line that has been set up for ages for Indigenous First Nations folks in Canada, for various reasons, got double the number of calls for help after the Pope apologized. And from my perspective, it's because of the permissibility now that the Pope has apologized. It's like, now we can talk about it, which I think is part of this.
I mean, from what I was seeing, it was really re-traumatizing for a lot of folks to have this brought up, to see everybody talking about it on the news.
Okay.
To have all these conversations again of what was in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's report and findings. And I think like when you have so much like emotional expectation built up for something.
Okay.
And I think there was a lot of like measured expectations, you know, I think a lot of people weren't expecting great things of the Pope, but maybe some people were. But then I think like, you know how you like build up so much waiting for like an event and then it comes and there's kind of like the emotional letdown afterwards, regardless of how it went. And then like on top of that, it was so traumatizing. Like I just kept seeing a lot of people on Native Twitter just talking about, you know, thinking about their relatives and relations in Canada and like really worried about their friends and family. And I can't be on Twitter today because it's so hard for me. So I think that's would be my guess was a lot of people, you know, needed more help, didn't realize that they maybe needed help again if they had help in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of what I meant by that is like, hey, we're finally saying the things out loud, and the stuff that I've had buried for like decades is now rearing its ugly head because we're saying the quiet things out loud.
Yeah.
Yours was a much better articulation of what I meant. Yeah.
Jet lag.
Yeah.
That goes into the file that under jet lag.
Because I was thinking a lot about the book I've read, and I don't think you got a chance to read Five Little Indians yet, which is
not yet. It's on the shelf, but not yet. Past my eyeballs.
I thought a lot about what those characters would feel about this.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I should probably like move up on my reading list Unreconciled that I got when we were, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I think this should be probably my next book that I read, because it's a lot about, or at least I have one that's about, I think specifically. I'll have to look that up. Maybe it's, I don't know. Anyway, I've got some stuff here that I could read. Oh yeah, this is the one that I'm going to read. Sorry, I do want to read Unreconciled, but this is specifically about life after the residential school.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll be reading that, and that'll be going up on our Abby Research Reads.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I can't wait for you to read Five Little Indians because it's just like I said in my review on Abby Research Reads, which we can link to in the downstairs. The writing style is not my personal favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But the story is so powerful. It feels it needs to be discussed. And so like reading it solo feels wrong somehow.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we'll obviously continue to talk about this. And like we said, we'll do a hot-ish on where this ranks in apologies, especially once Dr. Aaron has a chance to do a little bit more research into kind of some of the back of this, because while Aaron is versed in, needs to grow more, obviously, but versed in Indigenous, we are both woefully unversed in First Nations history, movements, calls for action, etc. So we want to the true core of the hot-ish is we want to lean into the ish on this. So be on the lookout for
it'll be pretty ish, and hopefully I'll consume some of the like 10 books I bought in Canada.
Well, you can throw a couple at me when I'm in Pittsburgh in a couple weeks, and
that's true.
We'll do it together. All right, the next one is a totally different vibe, and it comes to us from our beloved colleague Cheryl, where there's not a lot of transitions for this one, folks, and we're not even going to try because jet lag brain. So just get used to the whiplash. But what I really appreciate about this story is that it really goes up. Sorry for those of you listening and not watching. A project named for the Peanuts character Franklin aims to boost Black animators. This comes to us from NPR, Cheryl via NPR. 1968 is when Charles Schulz introduced the first Black character into the Peanuts gang. There hasn't really been that many more, but there's been a lot of conversations I've read since from animators who talked about the magic of seeing Franklin and what that meant for them, a little bit like what we talked about with Fat Albert and Cosby in that way. So this is a really exciting new venture. Gosh, I swear I'm not usually this bad on jet lag.
It's okay.
To essentially say, essentially allow art to be transformative in ways that we advocate for here all the time. And it's a project at the Armstrong Project is a $200,000 endowment to give scholarships for students at historically Black colleges and using art and cartoon as the way. So if you want to read more about this, definitely click the link in the show notes. Now, and another, we have absolutely no transition for this. We want to talk to you about the girl who is shaming Matt Gaetz.
Yeah. And for those of you that joined us or on the replay on our Clubhouse Live, this was originally supposed to be last week, but it didn't make it into the Clubhouse Live. So we saved it for today. And I love all of these articles that I saved because they're woefully under citing how much money she's raised so far. So I checked literally this afternoon, and it's $2.25 million so far. The new goal is $2.5 million. And she's well on the way to it. But yeah, I saved this tweet for, and this was when she had only raised 900,000. To give you an idea of how massive the fundraising is, she raised 10% of the capacity of the entire North American Abortion Fund Network in days. And she has now raised over 2 times that number, which is amazing. So if you don't know this story, it is the story of a young Latina activist, Olivia Julianna, who works for the Gen Z for Change organization. There she is right there. She is the chief strategist, I think, for Gen Z for Change. And she went Gen Z on Matt Gaetz. If you missed what he said, besides the fact that it was horrible, presumably, at the Turning Point USA Student Action Summit last weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend before, Gaetz, I'm not even going to read it out loud because it's terrible, but he said that basically paraphrasing, why is it only fat, ugly women get abortions? Who would want to sleep with them anyway? I mean, literally, what I guess I should read what he says. Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb. Which is just disgusting and horrifying on so many levels.
And just for anyone who thinks that he may have been the only person to ever say that, that's a very common refrain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'll just say that for the viewers as well.
Oh, and the stigma that's attached to feminists, that we're all like men-hating lesbians and all of that stuff. Yeah. So she took these comments and she said, okay, let's make some money. She replied to it and said, I'm actually 5'11", 6'4" in heels. She tweeted, I wear them so small men like you are reminded of your place. And she started fundraising for several funds, like different abortion funds around the country. So this happened on Tuesday, and by Wednesday morning, she had 168,000. By Thursday morning, it was 400,000. By Thursday night, she had hit 1 million. And it was amazing. She is just trolling Matt Gaetz all day, every day. She's writing him thank you cards. She's starting hashtags like thanks Matt Gaetz. And it's a remarkable example of what you can do with like internet hate. And Oh, whoa, I'm looking at this quote that you just found. That's great. Yeah. And because it's both, anti-healthcare, misogynistic, and fat phobic, all what he said.
Yep.
And so it's really bad in a lot of ways. And for her to kind of flip the script and say, like, okay, you said this stuff in public. I understand how Twitter works, and I'm going to use it to the advantage of all of these humans who are going to need access to reproductive care.
Yep.
And it's just one of the best stories I've read in a while. She's been on the news a lot. She just doesn't stop working for change. And it's one of the things we love about Gen Z is how much they know how to use social media and how quickly they can weaponize it, mostly for good. But, sometimes there's those weird TikTok challenges, which we don't like when they do that kind of stuff. I saw this one now, sidetrack, today on Twitter. That's a Kia challenge.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Because Donny O'Sullivan at CNN got his car hire stolen in St. Louis because he had a Kia. What? Gen Z, stop with the stealing things and eating weird things. More of the fundraising for healthcare.
Yeah.
Please.
Speaking of sexism and ableism, though, we're going to transition to one that my husband actually found, which, good job, John.
Thanks, John.
There was a reporter for, I actually don't remember what outlet she reports for, so I deeply apologize, al.com, who was not allowed to cover the execution of an Alabama prisoner because she wasn't dressed properly. It's a whole saga about how she had open-toed shoes. They made her change them. Then they said her skirt was too short, and it's a whole nine. But what has been really, really fascinating, first of all, why are there dress codes for executions? Second of all, why are there executions? Third of all, what are we doing? But what I really appreciated is that all of these dudes that have been covering executions at this prison for ages were like, never been dress code, never been enforced. I show up in sweatpants.
Yeah.
This is sexist and dumb.
Yeah. It's basically
also, I just
what
want
they're
to
saying
the
is
absolute lunacy of the statement. Your skirt is too short to witness a murder.
I know. I was like,
murder.
It's just one of the most blatantly obnoxious, sexist things I've seen in a real long time. Because
how is one skirt too short to watch the state kill a citizen?
What is showing more of her legs going to do? The guy, the person, I forget what they have in Texas, lethal injection, I think.
Oh, there's Alabama.
Oh, sorry, Alabama. I think it is still lethal injection, but
yeah, I don't think there's,
they can't see your legs, so it's not like the person doing the state-sponsored killing is going to get distracted by lady flesh and miss a vein. No, they can't see you. It's just a glass observation window.
Yeah, other women journos are saying, I've been denied access into a government facility to report in a court case because my professional clothing was deemed too revealing.
Lads.
This is purity culture gone nuts. Absolutely nothing that a woman is wearing.
I absolutely have no idea what this is.
It's exhausting to be a woman. Gosh, isn't it?
I identify in the famous words of Hannah Gatsby, I identify as tired.
Yep. So this came to us from Sky News, which is a British thing. I also want to say, I find this very interesting. This man was executed for killing his ex-girlfriend. And there's been a big to-do, but by some people in the Alabama government, that this is how they say that Alabama stands with survivors or victims of domestic violence.
Oh, because they executed
a batterer. Him. Yeah, a batterer. I'm using air quotes because that's his technical term, whatever that means. There are a whole host of other ways to do that.
Yeah.
That doesn't involve another person's murder. So
right. And I'm pretty sure Alabama's one of those ones that had a trigger law with Roe. So
yeah. It's a really interesting Abbey Research as a company doesn't have any sort of stance on the death penalty. Kristen and Aaron as humans hate it.
Yeah, think it's abhorrent.
Yeah.
I just had a private DM from our dear friend Jay, who has asked what my t-shirt says because it's hockey related. So Jay, it says Sidney Crosby is really good at hockey.
She wore it to my brother's wedding, which is one of my favorite pictures of Brian and Aaron ever. Brian,
The
who
after
rode Sidney
party.
Crosby.
The after party.
Yeah, the after party. She wore a very fetching blue dress to his actual wedding.
I did. It's one of my favorite pictures ever in the history of the world is me and Brian and his sad face over my Sidney Crosby shirt.
So, but speaking of Jay, is also why is always what we wear such a big deal? You know, I will actually address this really briefly because I think it's worth it.
Pushing the soapbox in your direction.
If I could just step onto the soapbox. So, one of the downsides of being a country founded by puritanical theology that has never been countered is that we have some really insidious ways that we believe, insidious things we believe about people. And one of them is that women exist to procreate and carry the next generation. We have to at all times protect the sanctity and virginity and purity of women, because women's only job is to give us the next generation. And so therefore, if they're wearing anything that doesn't become a mother, if they're doing anything that doesn't allow them to just focus entirely on being a walking womb, subconsciously in the United States, we are uncomfortable with it. So women are either sexualized beings for pornographic purposes for men's sexual pleasure, or they are mothers.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody wants to blur those two things, society does not know what to do. That is what is called one of the side effects of purity culture. We see it in the UK as well, where they had the Church of England for fucking ever. We see it in Canada has it too. They just had a state church, but the US is particularly intense about it because we didn't have anything to counter religious Victorian puritanical mores in the way that some other, the continual separation of church and state in other places did. We just pretend that it never happened. And for more on this, please attend our training on why the Puritans are to blame for everything. Soapbox.
Yes. All right.
Now on to Beyonce.
Next up. Yes. So this was very interesting news that came up this week. If y'all saw that last week, Beyonce released her next album, Renaissance. And we had already talked about the use of the word spaz in rap, black rap, black music. I don't think white rappers use it. I don't know. I could be wrong. But it was used in a song on Lizzo's new album. And there was a lot of backlash from disabled folks who said, this is anti-ableist, this is the origin of this word, please stop using it. Lizzo reissued the song Sans the Word, and then Beyonce dropped her album and has a song with the word in it as well. So really quickly, disabled folks were like, wait a second, we just had this conversation. So there was, again, quite a lot of backlash, and pleased to say that Beyonce is removing the ableist slur from the song as well. So there is now a new version of it that does not have the lyrics. For those of you that don't know, the word spaz, which is the one that was used, is based on spastic diplegia, a form of cerebral palsy that causes motor impairments in the legs and arms, and has been used as a slur toward people living with that disability for quite some time. It means a different connotation in the way it has a different meaning and a different connotation in the way that Beyonce and Lizzo were using it, but it still carries that overall meaning in society. And so we are delighted to see these two powerhouse women walking back that language. That's the appropriate response.
I will also say it was significant to me that Lizzo herself made the statement, and Beyonce had a spokesperson say that they will be changing it.
Yeah, and I think part of it too, I read in the article, the song was written by Drake.
Oh, the upstanding Canadian citizen that he is.
So I don't know if maybe that's why Beyonce distanced herself from it a little bit, or what. But yeah, there was a difference in the way they announced it, for sure.
Yeah.
But and also, like, the Lizzo thing, in my head, I'm like, right, so the Lizzo thing happened, time means nothing, a month ago, 2 months ago.
To like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So long enough that maybe they could have changed the lyric.
That's what Jay just said. Like,
yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, she saw the Lizzo news. She knew the lyric was in there and what she thought she was gonna get away with it because she's Beyonce. I don't know. I can't speak for Beyonce, but like, girl, you had enough time. And I don't know the music industry, and I know, releasing albums is really, really complicated, but
But you are the most powerful Black artist on the planet. You tell me you can't pause something so that you can make sure that everybody's included?
Yeah, I know. Yes, it was
not my favorite.
But not my favorite thing, but I'm glad the lyric is getting changed.
Yes, very much so. I also just sometimes really love to remind people that Beyonce is a human person and not a transcendent being that
Yeah.
people talk about her as.
Yeah.
All right. This our last and final story has been making me incandescently angry for months now.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think we would hit another level of incandescently angry, but don't worry, the NFL made sure that we did. So, Erin, take it away.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so if too long didn't read, there's a now Cleveland Browns football player named Deshaun Watson, who for the last several months has been under investigation by the NFL and an independent arbiter for accusations of 24 different instances of sexual assault, inappropriate behavior, coercive behavior. Lots of words have been used to describe basically what it is it appears that the man has a fetish for massage therapy. And all 4 of these incidents happened with massage therapists, which he auditions to be his massage therapist, like contracts to try them out at an alarming rate.
Also, while there are 4 incidences that are documented with that, there have been over 30 accusations from different women that have come out in the last 6 months.
Yeah, he has settled 23 of the 24 civil suits.
Like, y'all.
So like it is recognized that this is quite a problem. And so the NFL conducted an investigation following the trade for Watson over the trade deadline this year, where the Browns signed him and guaranteed a $230 million contract extension in March. Is a lot of money that he is going to get. So the NFL recommended to the disciplinary officer picked by the league and the NFL's players union that Watson be suspended for at least the entire 2022-2023 season and postseason, and a penalty of $5 million. Yesterday, said disciplinary officer, Sue Robinson, announced a 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. And the main article that we're going to have linked in the downstairs, you can find out lots of news about this everywhere. But this is a particular article in Time magazine where they have interviewed sexual assault experts who react to this suspension. And one in particular, a woman, Dr. Janine Danabale. Danabal. I don't know if it's Italian or not. If I was pronouncing it in the Italian way, I'd say Danibale, but I have no idea. She is the director of the nonprofit group Moving to End Sexual Assault in Boulder County, Colorado, and she grew up a Cleveland Browns fan. And she said, my first thought was those survivors, what is going on for them? 6 games, it's less a slap on Watson's wrist than a slap on their experience. That decision is saying your experience doesn't matter. And I think one of the things that I found most disturbing about this was that this woman, Sue Robinson, said that his acts don't count as violent conduct. As if that's the only measure we should have for whether behavior is appropriate or not. And, that's really disturbing because a lot of sexual crime isn't physically violent necessarily. And that you don't have to have one to have the other. And so, Denis Belay says, again, what I want to scream from the rooftops is the fact that in about 80% of sexual assault cases, there is no physical violence. Physical injury is rare. The majority of the time in sexual assault cases, the force is by emotional force or coercive force or threats or other forms of manipulation. And I know the word coercion has been used a lot to talk about Deshaun Watson and leveraging his power and privilege as an NFL superstar to get these women into rooms and to, behave inappropriately and to assault them. So that I found one of the most upsetting things. The other one was a list of all of the other suspensions that have high profile players that have been suspended recently. So Tom Brady got a 4-game suspension in 2015 since it was, quote, more probable than not that he was, quote, at least generally aware of football deflation, quote, scandal. 4 games because of Deflategate. Seattle Seahawks linebacker Mikal Kendricks received an indefinite suspension after he was found guilty of insider trading. And it goes down the line. And so this is our instance for the week in which we're going to do a little bit of a cultural analysis on the commissioner. I think the independent commissioner, because the NFL can, we should say, appeal this decision.
And we should also say that when he was playing for the Houston Texans and this all came out, the Texans benched him.
Yeah.
The Texans immediately went, nah.
Yeah. So I don't feel like we need to do an organizational analysis necessarily on the NFL, although
maybe the Browns, but definitely maybe the Browns for even signing him, because come on.
And their statement was weak.
Was hot garbage. This is serious Art Briles at Baylor energy. We know they're a problem, but we want to win football games.
But and I mean, we talk about this a lot online and offline. Assault cases and abuse cases are a particular hobby horse of Dr. Kristen and I, because we feel real strongly in trying to dismantle rape culture in any which way we can. And I think that's one of the reasons why this needed to be kind of our hefty lifting empathy exercise for this week, is because it says so much more about rape culture in America and what is permissible and what is required of victims and survivors, the burden of proof, the expectation of level of violence that you have endured to make your claims legitimate, the
and
judgment
what the definition of violence is, that now you have had to be physically assaulted.
It has to be physical violence. Yeah, it has to be. You have to suffer physical injury to be assaulted. That's ludicrous. And also, the burden of perfect victimhood that is placed on women and survivors of all gender identifications. But because, this just came to me in my head, and I haven't read enough about this to know if people are saying it, but I know the general consensus culturally is that massage therapists or masseurs are stigmatized in a way that they're sexually promiscuous. Like we have a lot of jokes about massage therapists and happy endings and all this kind of like, in a way that is very demeaning to a profession that is so necessary for humans to function. But we hypersexualize and hyperstigmatize massage therapists too, in a way that I'm sure impacted how people were thinking about who these victims were and what they were accusing him of. So for us, this is where we're going to be talking about our beloved empathy quiz that we have launched last week. If you have not seen this, we have a fantastic and short and hilarious, we use memes, empathy quiz to test the level of empathy in your culture, in your company culture. We'll be dropping the link here in the comments. It'll be in the downstairs as well. It's showing up right there on the screen. It's so easy to take. But for our empathy exercises while we're running this quiz, we're gonna pick one exercise a week to kind of do a little quick evaluation of. So this one seemed rather obvious to Dr. Kristen and I when we were doing this morning. So we're Dr. Kristen, do you want to do the evaluation on this one? How's the jet lag brain? Do you want to?
I'm just gonna say could use serious improvement.
Yes. So on our empathy scale, rather obviously, I feel like we need to like add something lower. So like on our empathy scale, the bottom, the most work you have to do is there is room to grow.
Yeah.
I feel like we should add something below that.
Yeah, I think you haven't entered the conversation yet. Like we'd like to welcome you to the empathy conversation.
Do you know what empathy is?
Yeah.
I think that's where.
Are you aware of empathy? Do you think that humans are humans?
Yeah. I have a lot of questions for this commissioner. I have a lot of questions for our general societal attitude towards this. But it's not a quiz in which we pass or fail.
No.
But we would fail. If it was, we would fail. This one gets a big fat F. But as we said, if you want to, if you're curious now, as we've kind of teased about this, to see where your culture falls on this empathy scale. And I mean, it's a low bar compared to this one. So hopefully you're all above. Do you know what empathy is? But there might be room to grow for you. So check out the quiz and join us in our continuing discussions of who is and is not doing empathy well.
And speaking of continuing discussions, we hit pause on this conversation right now, and we'll pick it back up on Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Clubhouse app to discuss the next round of empathy exercises before we see you back here on Tuesday. We just keep rolling these on. Some will go out in the newsletter on Thursday. If you aren't on our newsletter, that link is downstairs as well. And we would be remiss to say that one of the best ways to improve your empathy, should you be looking to do so, is to join us on September 23rd for our virtual retreat exploring the nature of empathy, honestly, and then the pragmatic application of it. We here at Abbey Research believe in doing nothing that's not pragmatic. So that is what a huge part of that day is about. And if you'd like more information about that, comment below and one of us will get in touch with you.
That's right, everybody. Have a great week. Work on that empathy. Find some exercises for us. Drop them in the DMs and the comments. Let us know. Thank you to John and Cheryl for your contributions this week. We appreciate it. And if you want to get a shout out on one of these things, send us an empathy exercise and you probably will.
And in the meantime, just don't be the Cleveland Browns. And we'll
go from there.
Go from there. We'll see you guys on Friday. Bye.
Bye.